welcome to this episode of Entering the Creative Unknown. And today I am so excited to be sitting down to speak with Dr. Bonnie Whitehouse. And I want to read her impressive bio. So, this is going to be a little bit of a different episode than we usually do. And I think it's a very, very important episode. I almost wish we would have had you on season one. So, Bonnie Whitehouse is a writer and professor who explores creativity, contemplation, and embodiment. She's a two-time Nautilus Award winner. She's the author of Seasons of Wonder, for which she won the gold medal, A Foot in Lighthearted, for which she won the silver medal, and Kickstart Creativity. She's a certified Jungian spiritual direction and she's certified in Jungian spiritual direction and dream work. She holds the rank of professor of English and serves as senior scholar for the Global Honors Program at Belmont University. She lives in Nashville with her family, and she also has an amazing book coming out called In Our Hands, A Maker's Manifesto for Changing the World Through Creative Practices. So I am so happy to have you here speaking with me today. And before we move on, I know I already prepped you for this, but I'd like you to, if you can, read. There's a portion of your new book that's coming out, and it's an invitation that you extend to the reader. And I was wondering if you might be willing to read that right now.
Oh, thank you so much for such a generous introduction, Stacy, and thank you for having me on the show. So I would love to read the intro. You are invited. You are invited to put your hand on the doorknob, pull open the creaky old wooden door, and walk through the threshold. You are invited to follow in the steps of many who have come here before you and step into the space of makers. Take your seat at the large and ancient table, one that has welcomed countless hearts and hands before yours. Look closely at the table. You'll see that the surface is engraved with tiny histories, paint stains, knife grooves, ink smudges. In the grooves, you'll notice clay dust and errant fibers of thread. These are the traces of those who, like you, have paused their noisy, chaotic lives to come to this sanctuary so that they can bring something new to life with their hands. In a world filled with tempests, divisions, and distractions, we are all invited to step through the threshold into the makerspace, take a seat, and contribute our imperfect offerings. To let a brush leave its mark, to let our fingers shape, stitch, or scrawl. Having the courage to sit ourselves down in this space is a brave, quiet act of revolution. As news cycles spin out of control, the choice to rest and breathe is to make a declaration. I will not let this chaos swallow me whole. You are invited to realize that caring for and nurturing yourself in this way is not selfish. Rather, it is seed work. When you sit in peace, you strengthen your capacity to keep going, to resist despair, to imagine something different. When you allow yourself to create without the expectation of product or performance, you are practicing a more tender way of being in this world. And the work at tables like these is how resistance often begins. Not with grand gestures, but with small, steady choices to nourish your spirit by exploring your own inner world. Here at the table of makers, though you may be the only body in the room, you are certainly not alone. You join a long lineage of those who have found a sense of refuge through their hands. And refuge is a word that comes from Latin roots, and it means a place to flee back to. So we can always take time away from scrolling and stressing to flee back to the wisdom and power of our hands. In a world that highly values language, working with our hands is countercultural. Creative practices can help us bypass our towering egos and move into deep, meaningful, free expression, making space for joy, for play, for exploration, and for beauty is one of the most radical ways to care for ourselves and to transform the world.
Mm. Oh, what a perfect way to open this conversation. When I read that portion of your book, I found myself really feeling the tenderness of the moment that we're living in as humans. And, so on this show, I speak with artists, and some of them are just, I don't want to say simple, but some of them are just making for their own pleasure. And some artists are really producing artwork as they're living. But I think there's something in both of those areas of creation where we're facing the same um, obstacle in this moment of where do I have the right to exist when so much is happening? And how can that existence, what I guess I'm trying to think of how to say this, but there's something about um, maybe trivializing the importance of our creative practices.
Mm.
And this show is called Entering the Creative Unknown, but how do we even get to the part where we start creating? And that's what I really love about what your book is going to be bringing. So let's just sort of open it up and talk about how did this become a subject of importance to you?
Mm. That's such a great question. I mean, I would say it's always been important to me, but I haven't always allowed it to be important to me. So, and maybe that a lot of people will resonate with this, but I loved to make things when I was little, when I was a child. I write about this in the book that easily the best present I ever got for the Christmas from my parents was the Fisher Price plastic loom. I love to weave on that loom, just, the moving the thread, setting it up. I loved it. It wasn't about the like random little placemats that I made or anything like that. It was about the process of making. I loved to paint. I loved to letter by hand as a child. I used to use my mom's calligraphy set to practice the alphabet, and I loved writing. I called it writing. Um, but somewhere along the line, when as a child, I remember somehow getting the message that I wasn't good at art. I was good at reading. And I think one of the reasons why the culture, I'm not blaming anybody, but the culture likes girls to be good readers is because you're quiet and you're not disturbing anybody and you're not making a mess. And so, in the culture, in the time that I grew up in, art was messier, it was louder, it was more, it wasn't as, the outcome wasn't as obvious as somebody who would do really well in reading. And so I just went into reading and I went full into reading and I got a degree in English and a PhD in English and have, worked and studied and taught reading and writing for my entire career. And my love of making things with my hands came back to me, though. I think through knitting, through friendships with other people who loved art, and especially through my work training to become a spiritual director, where creative embodiment was a really big part of the curricular work. And it was very important to get in touch with making and with creativity as it aligned with spiritual work. And that just exploded back for me, in my life. And I transformed the room that I'm sitting in from my kids' playroom into my mom's makerspace or my
Yeah.
mom cave or I call it my scriptorium sometimes because so much ink in here. Um, yeah, so I think that that's part of my story, and I think it probably resonates with a lot of other people. I think a lot of us have these childhood loves of making things with our hands and doing art, but we get derailed into things that are supposedly more lucrative and practical and quiet and not messy.
Yeah, it's also really interesting as you're saying this when you were talking about the reading and keeping maybe specifically women and girls quiet, but maybe keeping everybody quiet.
Mhm.
There's this sense to me also of even creativity though in and of itself has become such an isolated practice. We've kind of moved away from the idea of creating together. And you and I met in a creative group
Yeah,
together, which has been like such an incredible experience for me to just be creating with people. When we're creating in community, we're integrating
Mhm.
and we are really listening to one another. I think of it in terms of like, our body it is an embodied practice. Our body is involved in what we're doing as we're
Yep,
speaking. And
yep,
there's something too, like, if you're in an argument with your partner or you are trying to, doing something embodied really helps you remember your own wisdom that
yeah,
we push
yep.
aside so much of the time. And I like the way that you were breaking down. Do you want to talk a little bit about the manifesto and how you sort of break down the different ways of creating and what they represent?
Sure, and you'll have to bear with me. The book is not in print yet, so I've got to pull it up on my
Yeah, of
screen.
course. Absolutely.
Just give me a second here. Um, yeah, so I the manifesto is made up of um, verbs, actions, things that we do with our hands, and I'll just run through it real quick. The subtitle of the book is A Maker's Manifesto: Changing the World Through Creative Practices. One, beckon. Our hands can offer refuge, calling us back to the maker space when the world feels untethered. So the beckoning, the action of beckoning. Come on in. Second, cradle. And this is for the child within. Our hands, and making with our hands, can remember and honor the possibilities that dwell within us. And I love the illustration for this chapter. It's the little Russian doll that has little dolls within. And you can see it when hopefully you'll get the book someday. But wonderful illustrator Willie Chen made this beautiful doll to help us imagine and remember this inner child that dwells within us. Third verb is grasp. With our hands, we can claim the wisdom of the imagination and make it tangible for ourselves. So we can grasp with our hands. And then manifest, a wonderful verb. Manifest in its roots means to make real with the hands, manifest. Manicure is getting your hands taken care of. A manifest is to make real with your hands. Our hands can bring forth which does not yet exist, offering wisdom, insight, critique, and joy. And then next, the fifth verb is prune. To prune is to remove what is withered or no longer needed so that what is new may breathe and flourish. And pruning is just a fascinating concept that I didn't really fully understand because I'm not a great gardener like my sister is. But you really do need to prune and remove so that growth can occur. Weave, um, our hands can help us move through time, threading the past to the present to the future. And so our hands can help connect us to those who came before and those who are going to come after us. And then finally, clasp. Our hands can join with other hands to gather courage, choose connection, and step forward together. So that is how I organize the book around these motions that we make with our hands. And each chapter unfolds in ways that explain more about that, but also bring in specific examples from history and mythology and art, as well as stories from my own life and educational philosophy.
There's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I just recently gave a presentation at the Young Institute, and I was talking about how the way that we enter things is so important. So my presentation was basically about how I entered dream work through the body first before even knowing what was happening. I didn't know anything about Carl Jung or anything like that. And if I had, maybe if I had known about the books beforehand, I wouldn't have actually gotten into the important part of what I was doing with my body. And there's something about that. There was something in that with my presentation where I was talking about the right to um, meet our imagination and our dream self with reverence and intention and time is a natural, it's a natural way. It's part of what we are naturally connected to. And we've been intentionally, I believe, moved away from that practice. Of course,
Yeah,
because when we do that, when we are creating together, when we're taking our creation seriously, first of all, we're taking possibility seriously. When you really put possibility on the table, that is scary for a world that's trying to pigeonhole you into, compliance and complacency, right? And then also, when it becomes the natural thing that our bodies are sort of designed to do, creating, being, dreaming, imagining creatures. It's been put into the shadow realm, sort of, hasn't it? Don't you feel that a bit?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So when this book, I don't know so much about your other books, but in your work that you do and in this book, who are you speaking to?
Mm, thank you for asking that question. The readers that I imagine are those who are trying to find ways to connect with their imagining self. And they feel her beneath their skin, and they want to connect with her more. And they understand on a visceral level that the culture is not sponsoring that. And so they want to carve out time and space in their own lives, whether it be through walking, which was my first book, was all about how walking is a way to be mindful, um, or through, this current book, which is about, connecting with the maker within.
Yeah, there's something about, well, first of all, there's something about how when I get to my age, I have a thought and then it just automatically disappears as if it never existed.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, totally.
that's a thing.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But there's something about this idea of when we create and when we hide our creative selves, there's also something to the ritual that's beyond the creative practice. Like, what do we do with pieces once we have them completed?
Hmm.
And I'm going to go into a slideshow for a little bit that shows a little bit of your creative
Oh, gosh.
practice.
Okay. Okay.
But I mean, in this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so hard. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, my creative practice. No.
Well, and one other thing I would say is, I'm not taught, I don't, my audience is not somebody who's like, I'm going to art school and I want to be a professional artist. Um, I love those people, but I mean, I don't imagine anything I make's ever going to hang in a museum. It is really for me, and I know what you're about to show is really for me. I um, I love to create as part of my process for figuring out like how my day is going to go, or to settle in through meditation, or I'll watercolor. Um, so collage is also something that I love to do to try to make sense of the tarot, or a story that I might like to write. So yeah, I mean, the audience is definitely someone who's not focused on product, but someone who's really interested in the product, the process.
Well, and I think that that's the thing that's so important. The process is so important, whether you are making a daisy chain or you're creating, you know, Da Vinci's whatever he
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
But I think as we go through this, how I want to approach this slideshow is through an embodied lens. So I'm going to sort of ask us together to just go through the slides, and and the audience also go through the slides. These are I don't want to call them simple, but they're simpler art practices, right? They're not something that you had to go through an art school for. However, you can feel into them, and that's what makes them beautiful. When you look at a piece of art and you're like, how the hell did they do that? But when you look at a piece of art and you're like, oh, like I could feel into this. Like this is something that I might do on a rainy afternoon, or this is something that I might just do for 5 minutes of quiet. So as we go through this slideshow, which I'm about to share right now, I want us to just all look at it in an embodied way, because that's the best way to be experiencing art, anyways. And let me just go into full screen mode. So, just before we move into the practices, this is the cover of Bonnie's book that's coming out on September 29th. And at the end of this show, there'll be links to where you can pre order the book and get her other books. So, um, I wanted to have that there at the beginning. So, so right here, I want everybody to just sort of look at this piece and notice what they see, and maybe just take a few breaths, like looking into this piece. And there's a lot of centers here, there's a lot of spirals here. There might be something different for you, but I can already feel into my body what this piece is for me. And it's because it's very familiar to me. And I think it's really probably familiar to all of us that are looking at this piece. So, Bonnie, I'd like you to speak a little bit about like what this sort of practice is, and how one would feel into this, or what is your imagination if you were observing somebody creating this piece, what would it look like for you?
Yeah. So this piece is very much about choosing intuitively a limited color palette and breathing in and out of spirals. And it is a first thing in the morning kind of practice. And so every image that you see there has kind of a spirally rose-like form. Um, and some have been constructed from the outside in, and some have been constructed from the inside out. And each one is constructed through breath work.
And the when you were saying, each one of these is like a rose-like thing,
Hmm.
when we're connecting to spirals, we're connecting to all of nature.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And it's meant to be, it's meant to be very accessible, obviously. I mean, you can see that I'm playing around with the belly of the brush some, the tip of the brush, the belly of the brush, but this is all about connecting through my breath with that ancient form, the spiral that I love personally so much. Spirals inform a lot of the meditative watercolor that I do.
Well, and working through, when we think about the spiral, I mean, I've been in a lot of, unconscious practices with people, embodied art practices, the red book. It's like, this is the same. This is the red
Yeah.
book right here. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's our own, this is a calling to me. Spirals are a calling. So what I want to really address with the listener right now is whether you have a art practice where you are having shows and exhibits, coming back to the simplicity of things will really open up your creative practice. No matter how many 10 millions of years you've gone to art school and have techniques, if we don't have this more separated we become from this, whether it's through a very, I don't want to say sophisticated practice, but whether it's through a very academic art practice, or if you're getting distracted by AI images and what's being fed to
Yeah.
you online, it's still a taking away from. So this is a space that And I think that this is what your book is about. It's about a coming home
Hmm.
to
And this,
two.
yeah, this is instead of looking at my phone in the morning. So sipping my coffee, breathing with my watercolor, very imperfect forms as I ease into my day, not scrolling through and seeing what hell we have encountered overnight in the news.
Exactly. Well, and and when you get through the practice, it really enables you. I think that when we go straight to our phones or we go straight to the news, we haven't even checked in with our bodies to see
Right.
like, oh, hey, am I ready to receive this or not? Or should I
Yeah.
like I'm not trying to be blind to what's going on. I'm trying to say like, okay, hold on one second. Let me check in with myself. What do I have space for? What's my physical self telling me? Because the reality is, Bonnie, like, if I continually dismiss my nervous system, I'm not going to be around to fight for democracy or justice or anything because I'm
Yep.
going to be ill.
That's
So
right.
these practices, if you are truly, I think this is really an interesting point. When people talk about embodied practices being acts of activism, I really understand the spiritual bypassing of that
Mhm.
statement. And I understand that there's so many people that are like, okay, I'm just going to like, I'm doing my thing, light and love, and hope I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if I don't check in with my body, I can't be effectively showing up
Yeah.
in the
Yep.
world. So this is really very much important
Yeah.
to
Yeah. I
not
think of a,
just
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say to not just be enraged and despaired.
Yeah. I think of just, and I have, Stacey, I have hundreds, maybe even thousands of little paintings like this one. And I think of it as like evidence. It's evidence that I allowed myself to breathe and, you know, come into the day and, give myself permission to sort of ease into the moment. And in a way that is creative as opposed to what feels destructive to me, which is the helplessness that I do feel when I stare at my phone first thing in the morning. So it's
Yeah.
evidence that I tried to be hopeful. It's
Yeah.
not going to hang in the Whitney. It's evidence that Bonnie tried to be hopeful one day at a time.
Well, and also like allowing there to be a sense of and also this
Yeah.
like a wholeness, right?
Yeah.
Um okay. So you were creating this when we were
Yeah.
together in in Bridget's Hearth.
Yes,
So
I was.
and I love this because this was about so this just shows the power of coming together collectively and creating art. So we
Yeah.
were together in Bridget's Hearth. I don't know how long ago that was, but a couple months maybe
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And since then, we really haven't spoken. We sent a couple of
Right.
emails about this, right? But we haven't
Yeah.
spoken. And I already told you that I don't remember the thought that I just had 5 minutes ago.
I understand.
But I remember this. I remember that you did this painting. I remembered that you did it in Bridget's Hearth. And I remember that I think, and I might be wrong, but a friend of yours or somebody has the Tibetan prayer flags in their yard, or you were somewhere where there were
Yeah.
Tibetans and you wanted to create that either as a
Yeah.
gift or
So,
you wanted to. So that's pretty,
yeah.
that means that I was embodied in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And this represents using my little art making habit as a gift because I this is actually not totally finished. I've got it, it's finished somewhere, but I gave it to my dad for Father's Day because we had a family vacation at the beach earlier this year. My sister brought these Tibetan prayer flags, and the first thing she did was hung them up on the little porch at the beach. And so we just sat and had quiet family meditation, coffee, yoga, stretching, wonderful conversations in front of those prayer flags. And so making it was like a way of taking myself back into that really special time with my family and then gifting it to my dad who's got it framed. he framed it and put it up in his little workout space. So, yeah, it's and I do think I love thinking about how the things that we make with our hands can be offerings not only for our own individual nervous systems, but for the people that we love. In a world where we've all got enough. Most of us all have enough stuff, and that these kinds of offerings can really be ways to mark um, occasions in ways that feel more heart-filled and meaningful to me.
Well, and also the awareness that, like, in the making practice itself, in making in community, and you sharing the story of what you are making, I know something very real about you. Do you know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know what political party you're a member of or what your
yeah.
economic status is or any of that. I know something that, like, I can identify with that. And that's when you say changing the world through creative practices. I think that this is sort of what we're leaning towards right now. So when you get, so
Yeah.
this is just another, would this be one of your morning practices?
The one on the left is the one on the right. I was doing some work with glazing, which is a very basic watercolor technique with lots and lots of layers. And I really love playing with glazing because it forces me to do really, really light work. I tend to have a heavy hand. I like big, bright, bold colors. And the glazing work on the right forces me to go into this real patient, slow cycle where you do a layer, real light, you have to wait for it to dry. You do another layer, you have to wait for it to dry. And the effect to me is really cool. It's almost like looking at tissue paper. So I enjoy that a lot. The one on the left is definitely one of my morning kind of, using a watercolor, using a limited palette of watercolors and filling in shapes. Something I learned from a wonderful teacher, Wendy Solganic. I take a lot of her classes. WillaWanders.com is her teachable platform, and she teaches a wonderful class called Watercolor for Relaxation. And it's one of those like I've done it several times because I love it so much. And at the most basic level, it's about using shapes and finding ways to fill them in using a limited color palette and how relaxing that can be while you're listening to an audiobook or poems or music and just as a super special part of my artistic practice is Wendy's watercolor for relaxation filling in of the shapes.
Yeah, it's interesting when I run groups at mental health and addiction centers, and we do like an embodied practice, like a physical practice, breathing and maybe yoga. And then at the end, we will, lots of times we're drawing dream images, but we can draw whatever we want or paint or do whatever we want, sort of like this type of practice. And I always say, pretend we're just at a slumber party in like first grade and we're just tapping into that. It's really important. Again, it's this to me, especially the image on the right of the glazing technique. For
Mhm.
me, this really is very challenge. This would be a very challenging thing
Yeah.
for me to do. Like, I feel like I felt a little bit of anxiety when
Oh.
you were talking about it, only because I work with watercolors and I just do not have the patience. And that's something for me to
Yeah.
look at.
Yeah.
So when we're doing creative techniques, it's an opportunity to not just play, but just like our yoga practice or any practice that we do, to just sort of look at what comes up,
Mhm.
get curious about it, and
Absolutely.
either decide to go with it or just say, screw it, and I'm moving. Like, I don't like, this is not for me right now. So
Yeah.
I think I'd like to name that, like, even with the, like, is my body ready to receive this news first thing in the morning? Also,
Right.
if I were planning on sitting down and doing this glazing technique because Bonnie does it, and so I want to try and do it, and then I find my body reacting where I'm really frustrated, well, then I'm going to go to the spirals maybe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then when I
Yeah.
see the spirals with this on the bottom, it might be a whole new thing that I'm like, oh my gosh, this happened exactly how it was supposed to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you think about? I really love this. I love when people incorporate
Thanks.
writing into their pieces because I don't do it very often. And
Uh-huh.
can you talk about incorporating writing with your rituals around creativity?
Yeah, I do it a lot. And I think I mentioned I love, and I've always loved learning about calligraphy. And I'm actually preparing to go to a big calligraphy conference next week. It's something that is very, very near and dear to my heart. Obviously, this is not calligraphy, but I am very interested in the idea of beautiful writing, that writing is not just something that we do to communicate emails and meetings and bullet points and to-do lists and plans and all that kind of stuff, but that through the act of writing, sort of as the Asian calligraphy in the Asian calligraphy tradition, we can create peace in the world through writing, through forming the letters, through using the brush, through using the nib and the ink and the breath to form letters. And so I do, and I always have done a lot with integrating text or just even one word or one letter or one line, as you see here, with the creative work that I'm doing. This piece is a collage piece. It's multiple art pieces that I just kind of glued together and played around with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll see that if you do the collage pieces that I have too, you'll see that. Oh yeah, there's another one. I Yeah, so you're gonna see. That's this is a piece that I love. It's a line from the Book of Common Prayer and the Holy Communion that faith is about proclaiming mystery and not just about answers or creeds. That we proclaim that faith is mysterious, and played around with integrating some calligraphy text along with an imitation of a Georgia O'Keeffe painting that I love. And O'Keeffe didn't do anything with lettering that I know of, but I've always loved the way that she used watercolor shapes to kind of evoke the landscape. And I think if you look at this, you can see the sun. I see the sun, um, coming to life over the land and the water. And I think that I love thinking about how the language can and mystery can kind of form into that expression.
Yeah. I love this. And I also really like the fact, just like speaking on this line that you used, another thing that is our natural state is to be faithful and to be connected to a source, whether that be nature, God, the sun, whatever it is.
Yeah,
And so that's another thing that has maybe been removed from our like how we are faithful. It's sort
yeah,
of been removed from our natural state. That's
yeah,
just my own personal opinion.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so these are the soul collages, right?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
talked about that. I've done a couple of sessions of soul collage, and for me, this is like the most frustrating practice on the planet.
Well, I love it. And
I
I didn't think I was going to
know.
like it at all when I first took my first workshop, but then I fell in love with it. And what I have done, and I don't know if this is breaking the soul collage rules or what, but I take a lot of my artwork that I've done for my meditations, and I kind of fussy cut it like you can see that rose, and then integrate my own work into the images that I find for soul collage. So that's a lot of fun to me. I mean, and this on the left is a card that I made last week on the feast day of Mary Magdalene in a small group that was hosted by our mutual friend Claire at the Sophia Center here in Nashville. And then on the right is the beginning of a full major arcana tarot deck that I did through Soul Collage for myself. As instead of like going through and trying to memorize what each card means and the symbols, blah, 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 I spent like one day with each major arcana card and spent a lot of time doing a deep dive into that archetype and using collage and image to make a card for each. So there's the Fool. The Fool is usually represented as somebody who's standing on the threshold, about to, kind of go over the edge. And I just love the idea of a baby being the fool. And that blue rose is something that's very special. It's a very special symbol to me. And so I wanted the baby to be diving into the mystery that is represented as the blue rose for me.
So it's something beautiful that you're bringing up in your practice around the tarot, and this I think is really an important thing, that we are allowed to feel good about the things that we create.
Mm,
That we're allowed to say, I'm creating this thing, not just as a practice, but I'm creating this thing for me to look at, for me to
yeah,
experience, for me to
yeah,
engage with, for me to
totally.
interact with. So that's really wonderful. I just wanted to bring this. I don't know if you've ever seen this book. It's Tashin's book on the tarot.
I have
And
it downstairs.
isn't
Yeah.
it the best?
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, I love this book. Okay.
So
So
I
we're going to
actually,
talk. Oh, go
can I
ahead.
show you something really quick?
Yeah, of course.
So this is my red book that I made. Oh, there
Oh,
you
hold
go.
on.
So
Yeah.
it's, yeah, there you go. You've got it. So I made this as my ongoing red book, and it contains what you're showing there.
Okay, great. Yeah, because this is what I wanted to show. I didn't really mean
Yeah.
to interrupt you. I didn't
No,
realize
no.
that it was just going to play. But I wanted to talk about, and you just got into it, about how we're allowed to love the pieces that we create. And also, I was speaking earlier on what we do with the pieces afterwards, like where do they live? And
Yeah.
I remember when I first started like doing art, like really sitting down and doing art practices, the first time I ever framed a piece of mine, it changed everything for me. It changed how, like, all of a sudden I was
Mm,
like, oh my gosh, I'm an artist. I never really felt that way. But then when I framed it, and somebody had recommended it to me, they said, take one of your pieces, buy a cheap frame, and just frame it and hang it up and see how it feels. And now now it's like people are like, all right, enough already with framing your pieces. But now my entire house is like just my pieces, which are all dream work. So it's nice to have it
yeah.
around me. But I like that. I love that you have this container, and I'm just gonna like play this. But if you want to speak about
Sure.
the container and the red book and the practice as this plays, that would be
Yeah.
great.
Sure. Well, you're inspiring me to want to frame something, but of course, I'm sure your viewers know Carl Jung's Red Book was his place where he brought his creative, expressive work, and he called it the most important work of my life. And so I don't know that this is, this is ongoing for me. I mean, but I wanted to have a special place to contain this work that felt very important to me. And I also really love that card, by the way, the Hermit.
Mm.
Um, some of these, are that one has a special feather that a friend gave me. Like I said, like I didn't want to read a book about the tarot. I wanted to dive in, and that's one of my favorites too. I wanted to dive in and really create the archetypes as opposed to read a few pages about them. Um, and so I feel like I do have kind of a deeper relationship with these archetypes now that I have spent the time doing this mysterious work that the hands do. And again, it's so hard to quantify. I was actually reading today about handwriting studies that have been done, and it's just so hard to measure what the hands can do. We know it's a lot. We know that a lot happens when you make things with your hands, but we can't really measure it. And so it's we proclaim the mystery of the hands, right? We proclaim that there is a mystery here that we just can't get under the microscope or in a database. But I can tell you from my experience, for me, spending time making those cards really put me in a much deeper relationship with these ancient archetypes that people have been coming home to for hundreds and thousands of years.
Right. It's like this acknowledgement of this relationship that, again, it's your natural right to be in conscious awareness of being engaging with this archetypal layer that we all experience, like to name it, to see it.
Mm,
And, the relationship changes. I imagine that every time you go through that book, which is beautiful, by the way, that there's a different relationship that comes up. And maybe it's different on different days, or, it's like this. I don't know. It's so beautiful because it's like a friendship. The more you tend to the friendship, the deeper the friendship gets. And so the more that you're tending to these individual arcana, the more the relationship is building. And that's
Mhm.
just such a powerful thing. Um, there was something
Can
else
I?
that I wanted.
Oh,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, go
I
ahead.
wanted to ask you something about what you just said. Really, I just wrote it down, but the right to engage with these archetypes. Can you say more about that? Because
Well, I
I,
think
I agree with you. I'd really like to hear, what do you mean by that? Like, and
I
how
think
are we
it's
being
like
deprived?
I think we're being deprived because it's sort of like how we don't take care of our elderly. It's like we
Mm,
don't let these not ancient, these lived symbols in our body to hold the importance, even though they tell us over and over and
mhm,
over and over and over again. It's sort of like that idea of like, you know, like God probably didn't have to have a burning bush. Like
mhm,
the message was probably being sent, and there's like he's
mhm.
like, oh my God, I'm just gonna this burning bush is gonna be here. We're gonna part the Red Sea. Like I shouldn't really have to do this, but I sort of had that
Yeah.
feeling of that idea of like if we realize that we're in engagement with this layer, then we have it's like having angels around us all the time.
Mhm.
And
I
it's
love that.
also about acknowledging our own power, our own wisdom, right? It's
Mhm,
coming
mhm,
up from
mhm,
us.
mhm.
So we just like the creativity is coming up from us. So it's important that we stay with it. I think also in the when artists tend to not artists, but when we tend to do like dream work or our daily dreams, it's like we do it and then we close the journal and we probably don't look at it ever again sometimes. And what I
Yeah.
love about the project that you did was that you're spending some time and you have something to look at. Like I mean, people have seen this a million times. Let's see if I have it here, but I keep a box of, well, not a box. I have several boxes of dream images. So here's one of the boxes. And
Cool.
when I can't remember a dream, like
Spiral.
I just draw an image from a dream and then I have all these pieces and you could do like a sand play practice with it.
Yeah.
You could do
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff with it. And I spend a lot of time with these pieces. And I just love that you did that red book because you're spending a lot of time and things evolve. Things aren't things evolve as we engage with them. So just like you want to be better than your teacher, and your teacher should want you to be better you know,
Mm,
than
mhm.
they are. And there's something about that. I don't know quite what it is, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love
So
what you say about how these ancient symbols and archetypes and myths are calling to us over and over and over. And I think people are hearing them. And I think when you see audiences flocking to go see the Odyssey, selling out like crazy, buying Emily Wilson's translation of the Odyssey, which is so accessible, um, you know, rejecting AI, the young people saying, we're not doing this. Um,
yeah.
it's it's happening. People are hearing, or at least, something is calling out from the ancient, and I think people are resonating with it. I don't think I said that particularly eloquently,
No,
but
no,
but
no.
I really think,
Exactly.
yeah, that gives me so much hope. What you
Yeah.
said.
So when you said changing the world through creative practices, I feel like we are saving the world if we continue to engage in this. And if we take something seriously, if you and I take it really seriously, that I don't know, like something ludicrous, if we take it seriously that I can't even think right now of an instance, but if you and I both hold a space as reverent and really are holding the container together, then something happens.
Yeah.
And we have to have our imagination present. I
Hmm.
mean, now our imagination isn't even really going into innovation.
Hmm.
It's pretty scary.
Hmm.
So, before we wrap up, I just want to give you an opportunity to, first of all, say anything that hasn't been said in this conversation that you were hoping to bring up. And also just letting people know again, like, where can they find you? Do you do
Yeah,
workshops? Where are
sure.
your other books? You give your give your pitches.
Absolutely. Yeah, so thank you so much. I am so excited to engage with your readers and listeners. And, I am on the web, bonniesmithwhitehouse.com, and you can buy any of my books through any places where you typically buy books. They are published through Penguin Random House, and then my new book, In Our Hands, is through Hachette Running Press. And so you can get them from your indies, from any of the big retailers, and absolutely would love anybody to, write reviews or reach out to me through my website. I also offer spiritual direction and dream work in a limited way. I am a full-time professor, so I don't have a full-time practice, but I do see work with a limited number of people through my spiritual direction and dream work practice, which is called Soul Friend Studio. It's based on the ancient Celtic idea of a soul friend or an anamkara, who companions with you, and who, Bridget supposedly said that, somebody who doesn't have a soul friend is like a head without a body, that we all need these friends in our lives to companion with us and walk alongside us. And my work is working with people, doing kind of one-on-one work with creative expression. And so I am companioning you and walking alongside you and helping you make simple spirals or simple glazes, and offering poetry, offering just sort of dedicated time and space for you to have contemplation and creativity come together. So that's a little bit about my work, and I just am so grateful for the opportunity to converse with you. And I'd like to. There's so many things I want to talk more about with you, Stacey. So yeah, I would. In Our Hands is really about maintaining a sense of self, and how do we do that in a world where we are confronted with these technologies that are threatening to rob our humanity, with authoritarian regimes that are taking away you know the right to say certain words, are being taken away from us. The playbook of authoritarianism is unfolding in front of us, and I do believe creative expression and coming together in community in the forms of creative communities, through guilds, getting outside of our homes and beyond the screen, I think is really, really critical right now. Finding ways to quilt together, or brew beer together, or be in book clubs together, really, really critical. So I encourage people to find ways to do your creative work for yourself, but also to get out and find others to engage with in this time. I think that there's so many ways to come together. There's so many ways to be part of the resistance, and to offer hope and selfhood for all of us. The dedication in the book is to my family, but it's also to all those who long to be sovereign unto themselves. That there is something about guarding yourself that is critical. And I really want everyone who reads my book and who listens to our conversation to feel a sense of ownership over yourself, and to be able to use the creative work that you do, not to, hang in a museum or make $1 million, but to make you feel the creative power and the autonomy that we all have. Um, so I hope that that resonates for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And like breaking the illusion that creativity is about producing a product,
Right.
and breaking the illusion that creativity is a competition.
Right.
It's really the opposite of
It
that.
is.
So this
Yes.
has been, I think this is such an important conversation, and I could also talk to you for a very long time, and maybe we will in the future. Who knows what we're going to
I
do?
hope so.
But
Yeah.
I'm just very, very grateful that you took the time to speak with me
Thank
today, and I'm going to
you.
put everything in the I call it liner notes, but that's, I think, an album. But,
Oh,
everything
I
will be in
love
the
that.
notes on
Yeah.
how people
I
can
love
reach
liner notes.
you. And yeah, just thank you so much for joining
Thank
me.
you so much, Stacy.